Artist Covington has been visiting us every month, and he does senior patrol for El Paso here. A wonderful man who explains to, since so many of our members are basically senior citizens, it's of great interest to learn about the different organizations that are here to help us in the city, well, and really the county. But he's doing a fair, I guess some sort of a service fair in Cruces this morning, so he won't be here. But our other two guest speakers that we're going to record are here, and they are Mr. Wayne Gilbert. So would you be so kind, Mr. Gilbert, come on up and take a seat here, and Mr. Ramon Rosales, please take a seat here. And Wayne is a recipient of the military medals, including many, the Combat Infantryman's Badge and the Purple Heart. And Wayne is the current president of the Korean War Veterans Association of Colonel Joseph C. Rodriguez Medal of Honor. And that's chapter 249 here in El Paso. Now, Mr. Rosales was one of 82 Marines, sailors on the USS Pueblo Ship who survived the horrific, lawless capture by the North Korea communist regime in 1968. Mr. Rosales, his classification as a sailor was seaman. And Mr. Rosales has won 2 Purple Hearts and the Navy Commendation Medal for Valor. And he does participate in reunions, which maybe he'll get into a little bit, with the survivors. There were 82 that were incarcerated in North Korea in 1968. And they were released by President Lyndon Baines Johnson in, I believe it was just before Christmas, 1968. All right, if we please now, let's begin. Mr. Gilbert, you're on.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All righty. Somebody out there say howdy to me.
Howdy.
Well, howdy right back to you, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say to Carol, Carol, I appreciate you inviting Ramon and myself here to speak about our experiences in the Korean War. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and at the same time, from my perspective, I'm very humbled to be here. So moving on, also, well, thank you, Carol. And Carol asked me to, no, that's better. Carol asked me to talk a little bit about my background before I enlisted in the U.S. Army. So let's go back in time. I was born in the mountains of Kentucky in the year 1932, December 6th. How many people in here were born prior to 1932? I guess I'm the oldest one in the room. So, anyway, moving on. And by the way, that was in a log cabin. And that was after now, in case you have questions, after Abe Lincoln. Not before. Actually, Abe Lincoln was born in Illinois, and he moved and grew up in Mountain Creek, Kentucky. So, anyway, enough about Abe, we move on here. I grew up with my grandparents. It was right after the Depression. Times were hard, money was short, and my grandfather, he raised tobacco for a living. Now, I could talk about that all day because everything was done by hand. He had 2 mules, a sled, and all the tools you could think of, but no power tools. And that brings me to the point. We did not have electricity. We did not have running water. But we did have a little house away from the big house. And I'll take that back. We had running water. I would grab 2 buckets, run out to the well, draw the water, and run back.
Spill half of it.
When they told me to do it. So we had running water. We can overlook that. But although money was very short, we had a lot of fruit trees. They raised a huge garden. And we actually harvested a lot of things out in the woods. In other words, berries, all kinds of berries, raspberry, grew wild, blackberries, raspberries. We call them huckleberries, but the real name is blueberries. So that was the slang back there in the mountains, huckleberries. Also dewberries and mountain berries. Also we harvested nuts. We didn't have any pecans, but we're talking about butternuts, walnuts, hazelnuts, beech nuts, it goes on and on. And all those things was in preparation for the winter. My grandparents did a lot of canning of fruits and vegetables. We had a cellar, and so that was to prevent the canned goods from freezing. It was cool in there. I was afraid of that place, so I didn't go in the cellar very often. But anyway, that's basically what was going on, except I had my 2 sisters at that time, and we would walk barefooted in the summertime, spring and summer, to school, and the girls did the same thing. And why did we do that? Well, you got 1 pair of shoes in the fall of the year, prior to cold weather. So, and that was usually hand-me-downs, sometimes new. I mentioned that no money, times were hard, but the families were close, everybody worked hard. And by the way, in the wintertime, we would walk, well, it's about 4 to 5 miles to the schoolhouse. And it was 1 room for 8 grades, 1 through 8. And we had 1 teacher, and that was it. And of course, that schoolhouse doesn't exist anymore, and neither does my log cabin that I was born in. Wasn't mine, but that doesn't exist either. So anyway, that's kind of the way that I grew up in the mountains. And when World War II broke out, my mother and her 3 children, we moved to northern Ohio. And by the way, Tim and I got something in common, because I think that he grew up about 10 miles from where I was living.
Yep.
And so this is for you, Tim. And it's also for you folks. I hope that by the time that I finish, and I know, I hope that you get some information. So, World War II, my mother worked in a aircraft factory, and after World War II, of course, the Korean War broke out in 1950. The North Koreans came across the 38th parallel on June the 25th, 1950. And so I was 17 years old. And the military always fascinated me, because a lot of my relatives were in World War II. They would come home with their uniforms on, and especially the blue braid on their overseas caps, which designated infantry. A lot of them were in the infantry. I didn't know much about it, but I wanted to join the Army as soon as I found out about the Korean War. So I asked my mother to sign for me. If you were 18, you, of course, you'd go ahead and join, but if you were 17, you need someone to sign. She refused. So I said, okay, I'll go to my grandmother. I didn't tell her that. So I went to my grandmother and she said, no, I'm not gonna override your mother. I'm not signing. And so, you know, at 17, we can relate here. We know it all. So, I was a little angry, and so I said, well, you just wait till I'm 18 years old. I'm gonna join the Army. And so I did. When I turned 18, I joined in 1951. How many people in here were born in 1951?
You weren't born in 51.
Well, I was born by 51.
No, in that.
Oh, in that year.
Yeah. You weren't?
No, 4
Were
years
you?
earlier.
Really? Oh, nobody, okay. Well, I joined the Army in 1951. I went to immediate basic training in Indian Town Gap, Pennsylvania, in the mountains. It was in the fall, cold, and while I was there, winter came on, devastating snow, very cold. But anyway, I took 16 weeks of nothing but infantry basic, and all of our equipment, all of our arms, everything, totally World War II. So, and of course, I would have to say that, you know, we were trained, we got to face facts here. We were trained to kill, close with the enemy and destroy the enemy. And I'd have to say that the cadre was mostly World War II, tough, disciplined, highly. You better do what you were told. And so I think that paid off for me, not only in the Korean War, but later on in my career. So after basic training, 16 weeks, I got a 30-day leave, orders for Korea, never heard of it. And so I went home for 30 days, and back in those days, we traveled a lot by train. So I took a troop train from Ashland, Kentucky to Camp Stoneman, California. Took us 8 days because it was strictly troops, and every time a passenger train came along, we had to pull off to the side. But anyway, 8 days. I got to Stoneman, processed, and we took a 4-engine aircraft. I don't know if there was any jets back in those days or not, but it was 4 engines. And we took that aircraft to from Camp Stoneman to Alaska. We stopped, I don't know why. I'm a private in the Army, right? And from Alaska, we went to Hawaii. We landed again. We landed in Midway, and we finally made it to Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo, Japan, there was a place at that time called Camp Drake. So we processed, we drew all of our gear, all of our combat gear. We took a Japanese train from Tokyo to Sasebo, Japan, and there was a Japanese freighter there. So all the troops loaded, and we slept on the deck overnight to Busan, Korea. Got to Busan, we took things were happening fast. We took a train north, and we got close to the combat zone, and again we processed. I was assigned to the 7th Infantry Division, 31st Regiment, 1st Battalion, A Company, 3rd Squad, and they gave me a real bad weapon. It was a Browning automatic rifle from World War II. This rifle, it took a magazine with 20 rounds. It was 30-06, and I carried 12 of those magazines on my belt. And since it was an automatic weapon, I also had a 45 with a magazine in the 45 and 2 extra clips, 3 hand grenades, steel helmet, and a pack. I think I weighed 135 pounds. but you do what you have to do at the time. And, you know, suddenly, I was in North Korea. And the first time we replaced the 2nd Infantry Division online, and I believe we were up there probably maybe 2.5 months. I wasn't in combat all the time I was in Korea, but I was in and out of combat. And I served 10.5 months in North Korea. Well, my Waterloo came along on October the 14th, 1952. But I'm gonna back up a bit. The enemy was, at that time, North Koreans and a mixture of Chinese. The fighting occurred in trenches, bunkers, hills, valleys. We used hand grenades, rifles, machine guns, artillery, and mortars. Let me say this. Something about combat. It's what you see on TV is not combat. Combat is chaos. It normally doesn't work out the way it's planned by the generals and the colonels. So it is chaos, and it's what you're trying to do, and if somebody says they're not scared, then I want to sit down and have a conversation with them. But your goal is to close with the enemy, destroy the enemy. And of course, you want to survive, and you want your buddies to survive also. It doesn't happen that way, but that's what happens in combat. It's difficult if you've never been in combat to describe what really happens. But what happened to me back to October 14th, 1952, our company, A Company, was supposed to take a couple of hills, they call them hills and mountains. Sandy Ridge and Jane Russell, I guess you understand Jane Russell, what that looked like. Yeah. And so we moved out early in the morning. Our company, we had, we were 1st Battalion, we had four companies, A, B, C, and D. We moved out, the Chinese and North Koreans were they were in their trenches, bunkers. And so the object was to take those 2 objectives. And it was a catastrophe, it really was. But anyway, what happened to me, I was on Sandy Ridge. I was firing my weapon, and obviously somebody was firing at me. So I sustained several small arms wounds, October 14th, 1952. It's a long story, you know, getting back to the rear, getting back to the hospital. I wound up in Japan at 81st 69th Hospital, Camp Zama, and I was in there about 4 or 5 months. There was a lot of people there in the hospital that was in a lot worse shape than myself, missing arms and legs. And I heard, well, by the way, I want to go back to October 14th. My company commander, his name was Edward Showalter, 1st Lieutenant. He led the charge. And just a little bit about him. First of all, he got shot behind his ear and it knocked him out, a bullet. He recovered and continued to lead the charge. He got hit with hand grenade fragments. He got hit with a burp gun, which was a World War II Soviet weapon, fully automatic. He got it all. I didn't see First Lieutenant Showalter for about 45 years, and one time Kay and I was traveling across country. I found out he was in Auburn, Alabama, and I went by there. So all he talked about was the war, and rightfully so. He had the Medal of Honor. He could talk about anything he wanted to. But anyway, after that, by the way, there was 100 and, I hope I'm correct here, there was about 150 or 60 Medal of Honor recipients in the Korean War. Some of those, I believe it was 106, was posthumously. They didn't make it. So from Japan, well, of course, when I got out, I came to the States, and I was in the infantry for several years. Finally, I got into missiles. I wound up here at Fort Bliss, and I made a career out of the Army. I served 21 years. I'd do it again. It was a nightmare sometimes, but I believe in Mother, God, apple pie in this country, and not necessarily in that order. God comes first and not last. I appreciate your all's time. In closing, there's only two situations that someone died for us: the American soldier and Jesus Christ.
Right on, right on, right on.
They gave their lives for us.
Yes.
And so, in closing, I'd like to say that Happy Mother's Day, all you mothers coming up tomorrow. And freedom is not free. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And if you ever wanted to sit down and talk to me on a personal basis about the Korean War, I've been retired a long time. I retired in 72. But I'd be glad to talk to you on a personal basis. I never talked about it for a long time, but it is what it is. It's reality. And I thank you all for your attention. You have a great day. God bless.
My name is Ramon Rosales. I was born in Smelter Town. Lived in Skull Canyon. And
El Paso.
in El Paso. And we had no water, no outhouse or whatever, we were poor. And but we went to school. I went to El Paso High School, and I graduated in 1966. And when I was the smelter smoke was horrible down there in the smelter town area. It was horrible. But they tore away Smelter Town and left Skull Canyon. So Skull Canyon still exists. But I went into the service. It was kind of funny because I was not of age yet, and like I said, I went to El Paso High and I graduated in 1966. And I turned 18 in March of 1966. And when I turned 18, I went and enlisted in the Navy. And so they didn't wanna take me then to the military, so they wanted me to finish high school. So they sent me to the Naval Reserve to study in the Navy, to the Navy Reserve. And the Navy Reserve was up on San Diego Street at that time. And I learned a whole lot of stuff, so I kept, when I went into active duty, I was already a seaman. That's 3 stripes, okay? And all the guys that were with me were sent to the USS Kitty Hawk except me. And somebody says, oh, you wanna trade? He says, that's an oceanographic vessel. You wanna trade? I said, yeah, I'll go to the Kitty Hawk. And they said, no, he was chosen for a reason. Okay. So when I went to training in San Diego and everything, and my going to Japan, I went through the Golden Gate Bridge, I went to Travis Air Force Base, and I took a plane, and the plane caught fire. We had to turn around, and I was leaving in the morning, and in the same plane, they put another engine on it. I was watching them putting the engine on it. We took off when the engine was ready, and we took off and went to Anchorage, Alaska. Picked up some people there without turning the plane off. And then we came down to Tachikawa Air Force Base in Japan. And I didn't know anything about Japan or who the people were. They told me, oh, you have American money, that's against the law here. Go over there and exchange it for script. I said, okay. So that I went over there and changed my money, and they gave me a stack like that of paper. And so they said, you can go to the barracks and go to sleep. I said, no, I'll sleep right here. So, because I was waiting for the bus to come in the morning, so I got on the bus, and I was falling asleep, and I saw the lights coming on the other side of the road, and I said, oh, we're gonna crash, and the other car passed. I didn't know that they drove opposite of what we do. So I got to the naval yard, and I said, okay, I'm looking for the USS Pueblo. And they said, USS Pueblo, USS Pueblo. Oh, you're way over there where the nuclear subs are? You're way over there. So I started walking over there. It's a long walk. And I got to the ship, and I saw all the antennas and all the things that they had put on the ship, and I said, this isn't an oceanographic vessel. I knew right away it was a spy ship. And so I went on board and I reported and everything, and they said, well, do you know how to steer a ship? I said, yes, I do. Well, okay, we're gonna put you with a second-class boatswain's mate. So, so that's what we did. And we went down to Sasebo, Japan. Well, before that, we had sea trials, and the cable on the rudder broke, and we were in the middle of the bay like this. the funny thing, you know, that the Pueblo was called the Lonely Bull. So we're going around in circles going playing the Lonely Bull in the loudspeaker. And so we finally got there, and then we went down to Sasebo, Japan, and we hit a typhoon, and it was terrible. You couldn't see any of the rocks with you know, because when you're out at sea, there's rocks in there. They have lights that they put on the rocks so you can know where the rocks are. And so there, we couldn't see anything, you know. So I said, well, I'm going up there, and I'll let you know where the rocks are. Okay. So I went up there. I tied myself up in the open bridge, and I said, well, you know, the rocks are in such and such a, and you know, in such and such degrees. Okay. And at that time, the captain came in, and he says, who the hell is up there yelling? Tell him to get his ass down here, because if he falls over, we'll never find him in this typhoon. So I got down and I said, well, you know, I'm not as stupid as I look. I said, I tied myself up real good before I even did that. And he said, that's okay, but if you fall, we'll never find you. I said, okay. So we went to Sasebo and got the things fixed up again. Then we headed on up to the Sea of Japan, up to the Russian base that is way up there in the north, and it was so cold up there, and we had to go and get up and take ice off the ship, because if you let a half an inch in the ship would sink. So, you know, every day we'd go out there and take ice off, and we'd come in and they'd give us a little bottle of brandy to get us up. So, but every time that I went out there, I knew that I had to tie myself, because it was slippery, and we put rock salt, but it was still slippery. And sometimes we use the hoses from the boiler room up there and wash all the ice off. And when you go forward like this, it pushes you backwards. So, you know, you don't want to fall overboard. So, you know, we used to do that. Then we stayed there for a few days. We checked to see what ships were coming out, and the size of the ships and so forth, you know. And then we came down to the Chinese coast, and then we came down to Korea, North Korea, and then we went back up again. We went back up to the Russian coast, and then we came back again like that, and we were on that second trip. We were just sitting there, and one of the fishing vessels spotted us, and the crew tried to get contact with Commander Forces Japan, and they couldn't. And so the very next day, we had the torpedo boats, and they kept coming in. And we first had some MiG planes coming up, and they said, well, you know, they're too high. So, you know, one of the first one was a sub chaser, and he came in. We were sitting there. We were 15.8 miles from the island of Yodo. We were not in their territorial waters, which they claim. Their territorial waters are 12 miles. So we're 15.8 miles from the island of Yodo. And they came in and they said, heave to or we would open fire. Oh, we were heave to, we weren't doing anything. So we were dead in the water. And then all of a sudden four more smaller ships came in, and they surrounded the Pueblo. And again, they said, heave to, they will open fire. And the captain said, well, put up the signal flags, the international signal flags that we're departing the area, we're not gonna be here. Well, we started moving out very slowly, you know, at 1/3 speed. And then the sub chaser was going like this in front of us, like that. And all of a sudden, you know, they said, heave to or we would open fire. And they started firing from all sides, from the small ships to this side and from the back and on this side, and they were firing up in the bridge, because I had to watch with the Ronald Barron's, the second class boatswain's mate, and they started firing at us and exploding on the bridge. And so we were drawing, Ensign Harris and I were drawing what his ship was doing. And all of a sudden I saw a cannon shot, and I pushed off like that to Ensign Harris, and I threw myself back like that too, and I hit the radiator. But before I hit the radiator, I saw the cannon shot that was coming in, hit that window, and get out of there from the back of a little window like that. We could call it a fuse window, because it's got gas between them, so that they won't fog up. And they went out, and then it exploded in the rear. We were lucky, because if it had stayed in, it would have killed all of us. And they still started firing, and the captain was yelling out to the signalman that, you know, tell him this and tell him that and so forth. And one of the shots exploded, and he got shrapnel in his leg. So he was coming down the stairs bleeding, and then he came down and he said, okay, all stop. So we stopped, and boom, boom, they started firing at us from all sides again. Anyway, we got injuries down in the bottom, so the captain said, okay, we're all stopped. Why are they still firing? So, what the hell do they want? And so we were, one of us were crouching, watching the ship go like this, and the other one was drawing, you know, it was hectic in there because some of the communication technicians had gone up there to see what was happening, and they got caught in between, in the bridge, so they couldn't go down. So, the captain went down to see what was happening downstairs, and then we had one guy that was hit right in the middle of right in this area right here, and he was torn in two, and the other ones were hit with shrapnel on the legs. Hodges was the one that got hit, and he was singing when he died. He was singing when he died. And so we started, you know, we tried to burn as much stuff as we could and destroy as much stuff as we could, because they had not authorized us to use termite grenades. The termite grenade would, you know, you put it like this, and it'll melt all the metal down to the very bottom. And they said no, because it'll sink the ship too. And so, you know, we were caught with our hands where we were burning in the trash cans and wherever, you know, throwing papers overboard and trying to do everything, you know, and weighted bags and trying to throw overboard everything and so forth. It was a lot of paperwork.
So
And
they boarded the ship? Did they board the ship?
and so they kept firing and so finally they stopped, and they said that they were gonna board the ship. So the captain said, okay, get ready to receive the boarding party. And he told the chief, the boatswain's mate. And so he went into the back, you know, and they brought aboard some guy that spoke a little bit of English and so forth. And they left the second class boatswain's mate steering the ship, and they took all of us down to the fantail, which is the back part of the ship. And it was cold, very cold, and I had no jacket. So I was shaking like this, and Lieutenant Harris told me, Lieutenant Schumacher told me, don't be afraid, Rosie. And I said, I'm not afraid, I'm just goddamn cold. And I said, and he said, okay. Well, they told us that they had birds winging our way, that they had planes from South Korea that were coming our way to help us out. So I said, well, I can take this guy out if I see the planes coming in. I'll take this guy out right here. And nobody showed up. Nobody showed up, and later on they decided to leave us there because they said, oh, we had the Vietnam War going on, and it was a 10th offensive, and they had the Vietnam War going on, and they didn't want to start another war. So they said, okay, we'll negotiate. So they just left us there instead of trying. Well, to me, they're a bunch of liars, because they said we didn't send any planes because they were loaded with nuclear weapons. I said, I didn't know South Korea had nuclear weapons, you know? And Japan, they didn't send any planes. Well, it's against the law to send planes. What happened is that the admirals were caught with their pants down, and then they didn't know that what was happening. Where was the Pueblo? Nobody knew because we were supposed to be in radio silence. We spent 11 months of those 11, they tortured me real bad. From the very beginning, right after they took me out of the, I saw my blindfold was coming loose, and I saw thousands of people over the, you know, and they were spitting on me and, you know, and kicking me and so forth, and they took me down to a room and they were asking me questions in Korean. Of course I didn't know Korean. And then we lasted there for quite a while, and then they start beating me, and then they put me on a train. I spent the whole night like this, with my head, both my hands like this, around my neck like this, and I was having trouble, you know, feeling my hand, because it was so tight. And well, they took us to Pyongyang, and the thing about it is that they thought I was a South Korean, and the first time I went before there were 3 generals and an officer a high officer from the Navy and a colonel, and they had me kneeling down, and they kept asking me questions in Korean. I kept saying my name, rank, and serial number, date of birth. They keep banging me with the rifle butts because I kept saying name, rank, and serial. And one of the generals stood up and he yelled it real hard at me, and they took me away and put me in the room again. And I said, what happened to you? Well, this and that. Okay. Well, the second time, they were ready for me. They came in, they put a 2x4 in back on my knees, and they had me holding up a chair like this in the air, like this, holding it there. And they kept asking me questions in Korean, and I kept saying the same name, rank, and serial number, and they kept banging on me and banging on me and banging on me. And it got to a point where I just threw the chair one of the times, and they kept kicking my knees with the boots like that and so forth. So I was having trouble getting up, and all of a sudden somebody hit me in the head, and they knocked me out, and I don't know how long I was out, but I got up and I was in a dark room by myself, and then they came and took me out again, and they put me in front of the generals and the officers, and they kept asking me again, and I said, name, rank, and serial number, and finally they brought somebody that spoke a little English. And he asked me, "Are you South Korean?" I said, "No, I'm not." "Are you Filipino?" "No, I'm not." "Well, what are you?" I said, "I'm an American. I'm an American." He said, "You're not an American?" "You're not an American." And I said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "I an American of Mexican descent." "Mexico? We don't have problems with Mexico." And so, they, throughout that, and I kept telling him that my name, rank, and serial number. And one day they came into this, they had all the material, top secret material that had on tables in front like this, and they took me there and they dragged me in there after being beaten up, and they said, "You're a spy, and you're gonna be shot like a spy." Okay. Well, I knew what I was gonna do, and all of a sudden I saw Captain Booker come in, and he said, "Rosie, I want you to confess." And he said, "Confess to what?" I didn't do anything. "What do you want me to confess?" "Whatever the hell they want." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "Is that an order, sir?" And he says, "Yes. You've taken too much beatings." And I said, that's an order. Okay. So as far as code of conduct, I think I survived it. But that captain gave me an order that I was supposed to sign the confession. All through the years, one night it was very dark, and they took all of us. They took us out after being beaten up in the middle of the night. They took us out and they put us down into like a little stadium like this. And you can see the soldiers with machine guns on top, and they put us down like this, and they said, "Okay, they're gonna shoot all of us." They put us in line, 2 lines. Okay. And I said, "Okay, they're gonna shoot us because they got the machine guns up there and everything." Okay. So finally, after everybody was in line, the guy that spoke broken English, he said, "Exercise." So, that was in the middle of the night. Everything they did was the middle of the night. Take us to get a bath in the middle of the night in buses that had sheets on the windows. They never wanted us to see anything from on the outside. Life, I had grown, like I said, I grew up in a poor neighborhood, but people gotta understand that. Don't take life for granted, because you don't know how lucky you are until you lose everything you have. And I was thinking about beans and chili and flour tortillas from my mom. Well, I wish I had some beans and some chili and so forth, and before you complain about it, beans again, or this or there, and now you're wishing you had it, because all through that, we ate turnips and a little bit of rice. And of course, it wasn't free because we had to kill 10 flies before we could eat. It was terrible. I thought the fly was the Mexican national bird, but over there, it was worse. We had a lot of flies and spiders. We used to get the spiders and put them in a stick like this, wet them down, and then to entertain ourselves, and put one spider on the end and the other one on the end, and hold it like this. And they were mad, and they'd come and they'd fight each other, and then you bet which one is gonna win. We tried to entertain ourselves with whichever way we could, you know. We talked about our families till we got sick of it. We talked about cars, we talked about everything, and you name it, and
So what happened when you were rescued? How did that go?
we were being beaten up on the day before, and because they found out that what the Hawaiian good luck sign meant, excuse me, okay, this is a Hawaiian good luck sign, okay? And we told them that was a Hawaiian good luck sign all that time. So somebody here in a magazine put the story about the Hawaiian good luck sign on it, and what it really meant, and so forth. So for 10 days they were, oh my goodness, they were beating us up real bad. Then all of a sudden it stopped. It stopped. And I had two soldiers coming in like this and dragging me around, trying to walk me off like that. And then they brought a hard-boiled egg to rub the black eyes that I had. Like that. It just all of a sudden, it stopped. And I said, well, what's going on? And they told us to get all our clothes off. They checked all the cavities in our bodies. I mean, everything. And then they gave us a new uniform. And at night, they took us to the bus, to the train, and then we were headed down to the 38th parallel. It was something from one day to the other. We didn't know we were gonna be released on the 23rd. We didn't know. The beating just stopped on the 22nd like that. And so, you know, they asked us, okay, what are you gonna do when you go home? I said, okay, what's going on? We're going to go home, or so forth. And they gave us some pieces of candy. I said, okay, so we might be going home. So the next day, they put us on buses again and took us to the 38th parallel, and we were supposed to cross, I think it was at 11 o'clock. And the captain crossed with the body of Bachis first. And And then they told us, we're gonna release you, one person at a time, 20 paces in front of each other. If you turn around, we're gonna shoot you. Okay? So, you know, they had us going one by one like this.
82 men.
Yes, and when I finally crossed, I gave him the Hawaiian good luck story.
And then
But
what? And then what?
Even the air seemed to smell better on this side, even the air. And freedom is I don't know how to explain it. It's something beautiful. It's something that you don't take for granted ever, because people go out there, they die for you, and the worst thing that happened to me, I got hit, I got punched and everything. And the worst thing that happened to me happened here in the United States, because I was getting ready to come home finally to El Paso, and I went to the they were having was during the Vietnam War, and they were having
Oh, the
Protest.
riots and the protests.
Yeah, over
Protests
there,
and all
and-
that nonsense, yeah.
and I was going to take my plane, and somebody spit on me. And I remember, I said, oh man, I went over there and they spit on me, and I come here and they spit on me, and a tear came out of my eye, and I felt so bad.
Right.
That is the hardest thing that I heard. You know, that somebody spits on a uniform.
That's why we're recording, because they don't know. They're so ignorant. The schools weren't teaching what's right. The schools were not teaching what's right. And did all of you guys have black eyes? Did they give all of you black eyes?
Not all of us, but a lot of us were beaten up real bad.
And so, what physical ailments do you have today?
Well, they broke my nose, and they broke with my knees, my back, and they did neurological damage to my head, because they were hitting me with a piece of like a broomstick in the head like this, and they wouldn't hit you in the face. The reason I got the nose broken is because I punched one of the guards.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
He got the rifle and hit me right here and
The butt of the
knocked
rifle,
Huh?
The butt of the rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hit me right here, and my nose was to the side.
Wow.
What was your age around that time? How old were you? How old were you?
I was 19 years old.
How many of you guys are still living?
Well, we had a reunion in September of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and only 15 of us showed up because most of them are sick. There were about 40 some that have passed away.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe about 30 some guys.
Just,
But right now I don't know, because some of them were sick when we were meeting.
right.
That's why they didn't attend the reunion.
Well, most of your ailments, like mine, came from being in prison. I'm sure. Most of the ailments you have today
Yes.
were as a result of the treatment you
Yes, I used to run cross country with El Paso High School. I used to run cross country, so that kind of helped me. But I can't run a block now.
I know.
That protest that you experienced, was it here in Texas? Or was it,
California.
in San Diego?
No, it was in San Diego.
It was in San Diego where you experienced that protest?
Yeah,
Okay,
it was in
And-
San Diego.
The Americans were uglier to the military
Okay.
here in the United States, and mostly so when the
Okay.
guys hit port.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to,
Can
we're
I
gonna,
ask a question?
yeah, one question more, we're gonna
Ramon,
cut it.
how long did it take you to be able to talk about it?
It took me quite a few years because I started drinking very heavily. And I was smoking a lot and drinking and I quit smoking, and then about 27 years ago, I quit drinking completely. I haven't had any drinks, any beers or anything.
So it's been about 27 years that you've been able to talk about it?
No, before, yeah. And this was before, because I was involved with the veterans, the VFW and the disabled American veterans and a lot of them, military order, the Purple Heart, and the ex-prisoners of war. So I was around. Now I think I'm the guy that they go to whenever they need somebody for a POW, because the majority of them are either very old and they can't make it anymore.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up now, and, is there anything that you would like to state, Mr. Rosales and Mr. Gilbert, then, anything you would like to state? I know you wrapped it up, so pretty much both of you agree that freedom is not free.
Correct.
And, have you been in your, for the amount of years now, coming to 2025, have you been treated well or good by the Veterans Association, by the VA hospital?
Well, I can say that,
You wanna move the microphone, let it go real fast? You got about 2 minutes.
well, I can
apiece.
safely say that, I belong to a lot of, military organizations, life member in most cases. And, I've been treated very good.
Very good,
Yes,
okay,
very good.
Mr.
Outstanding, let's put it that way.
wonderful.
Yeah, could I say a couple other things?
Real fast, and then it's, you're
Okay, you went to the armistice last year down at the, Historical Museum.
Right,
Okay. In case you haven't been down there, there's a display from the Korean War, from a lot of the veterans. So, El Paso Historical Museum, you need to go down there. Now, it's a good thing you're filming this, because the average age of Korean War veterans is 92 right now, average age. And do you know, you can research this, it blew my mind, there's about 450 to 500 Korean War veterans that are passing every day. I thought it would be by the week, but according to my research, there's about 500 of Korean War veterans passing on per day. So
okay,
a lot of them are in their 90s. We've got some people in the chapter, well, for example, I'm in my 90s, but we've got some people that are 95 years old.
Oh.
And we've had a lot of people pass. So.
okay, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Now, Mr. Rosales, Mr. Rosales, what would you, so, your knowledge of the Vietnam War, because that's what you were basically in, even though you were on this spy ship, what, of the veterans that you know, Have they been treated well? Of the,
Well, I know that about 27 veterans who are in Juarez that fought during the Vietnam War, and because they got in trouble or whatever, they threw them all the way up to Juarez. And to me, I think that's not the way that the veterans should be treated. I think that they should have been given citizenship when they finished their service and all that, because it's not as easy as people make it out to be in the movies. You know, it's not easy. It's hard when you're there and when you're there, you have to put everything that you were trained for in use, which is, you know, sometimes you have to improvise either.
yes. Well, we sincerely thank you. We're gonna end this now. Folks, we hope that you'll enjoy watching this and learn a few things. This is El Paso, Texas. This is the Texas Cactus Rose Republican Women and Men's Club here. And by God's grace, these men made it home, and they've been through the dickens, and knowledge is power, so we hope you'll learn a few of the things that have saved this nation. Thank you so much.
Thank